So that's going to be the link for today's session. Okay. And the second link, the second slide is going to be the link for attendance. Okay. Anyone here join Webex? Can you see my slideshow screen, or you see my you see my okay. Let us move. Okay. Discussion is actually it depends on the thesis, but usually is going to be the last chapter of your thesis, but it depends. Some theses, they actually separated discussion from conclusion, or some theses, they make it as discussion together with conclusion. For those actually in the area of educational technology, might be you're developing something, you are developing mobile apps, or you're developing a module, or you're developing, might be any kinds of teaching and learning materials. You have additional chapter, which is actually usually after your chapter 3, you have your chapter 4 for the design of the teaching and learning material that you develop. Then after that, followed by the chapter 4, your finding, and your discussion chapter is going to be chapter 6. But most of thesis discussion is actually in chapter 5. Okay, so it depends on how do you design your thesis. For example, qualitative research, they have a discussion along the way. Qualitative research, for example, if the thesis has 3 research questions for qualitative, meaning that 3 findings of qualitative research. So after chapter 3, the methodology. So chapter 4 is going to be the first, okay, the first research question finding and followed by discussion. Okay, chapter 5 is going to be the second research question finding followed by discussion. And the following chapter, chapter 6 is going to be the third research question finding for qualitative followed by discussion. Okay, that can be the way that you write your thesis. Or might be the other way around. Chapter 4 is going to be the finding for qualitative research question number 1. Chapter 5, research question number 2. Chapter 6, research question number 3. And chapter 7 is going to be a discussion. So you can do that. Okay. However, discussion is actually a vital, the one that people will look into you whether you are qualified or not to be awarded with Doctor of Philosophy. And this is where you will evaluate, you will explain the overall significance of your research. I love this chapter very much. You need to love this chapter. So then you will immerse in writing and discuss your finding. This is a chapter that you will bring the examiner into your thesis. Okay, so how do you bring your examiner into the thesis? How to write it? Okay, so readers will often turn to the discussion or conclusion chapter first to obtain the overall pictures of a study. And they will turn it back, they will turn it the last chapter, they see it, then they say, oh, this thesis is so excited to be read and so on. So that is where, okay. So usually discussion chapter it's a showcase the scholarly abilities of the candidate. So it's about you. It's your chapter. It's not your supervisor chapter. This chapter is belong to you. So it will show your ability. How scholar are you? You will be awarded with Doctor of Philosophy. So you need to interpret the finding. Be smart in stating the limitation of your study. Okay. How do you tackle it? How does your study contribute to the existing body of knowledge and so on? So it will showcase the scholarly abilities of the candidates, and it also demonstrates your contribution to the field of study. So if you're doing in mechanical engineering, what is the contribution into the area of mechanical engineering? Okay, what is the contribution into the area of TVET, in the area of educational technology, in the area of any areas, must be reflect your own your PhD research area. And it's also a showcase for your critical thinking skill. How critical are you? How meticulous are you? Okay, that's why when you write a discussion chapter, never stop. What do I mean by never stop? If you start it today, make it continue till 2 weeks every day. because it's a story that you would like to tell the examiner. It's an exciting story to tell everybody your finding. Okay, so you must be excited with the finding of your research. Then you can produce a very good discussion and conclusion. Opportunity for you to demonstrate your understanding of the research. Usually, if you write a good discussion, the examiner will say A. Okay? Even though you have a good finding, without a good discussion, no A. Okay? A, when the discussion is really solid, close out the loop, voila, X factor, shut down the mouth of the examiner. It's something like someone ate a delicious food. Wow, it's so nice. I want to read it more. That's discussion. Okay? So, unfortunately, most of students feel rather exalted. Okay? When they reach up to the last chapter. Okay? Most of the thesis that I read, this last chapter, they feel exalted. And we can see, oh, this researcher is really exalted. You just make it as to finish your research. You just state everything that you have, that's all. Right? You never dwell into the findings of your research. So most researcher, we can see it. They feel exalted, okay, but not the examiner. Examiner is very excited to read this chapter. But most students, they feel exalted, then they say that, okay, this is the what I can do. Okay, take it. And the discussion is not really in depth. It's not really explain your finding is really excellent finding, amazing finding, and so on. There is even though there are some students are doing research that might be collect simple data, but throughout smart skill in discussing the finding, it looks like big. It looks like the finding is really a big finding, because might be the person know very well how to sell his research finding. Okay, so that is what the discussion. So in the discussion, you will explore the meaning and relevance of your result. Okay, your result, what is the meaning of your result? What is the relevance of your result? How can your result shape the existing learning theory? How come your result innovate something? Some examiner, they like to ask you question. What is your innovation in your research? Then this is where the things that you need to put in a discussion. And you explain how your findings or result fit into the existing research and theory. So if you base on constructivism, for those come from education, constructivism, connectivism, that's a theory in education. I'm not really familiar with a theory from mechanical engineering, but I believe you have your own theories, your algorithm, and so on. So when you have this finding, how can you put your finding into a connectivism view of learning theory? How can you put your finding into a constructivism principle? Are you actually revising the principle of problem-based learning? Are you actually make it add a new elements in constructivism? You can do that. Or in mechanical engineering, might be you are adding something, the new variables in the algorithm and so on. Okay, that is what you have to know about what you call it, discussion. Okay, I hope I'm actually recording. Okay, now we move. Okay, when you discuss, you need to dwell into the meaning of your finding. For example, if you're doing a quantitative research, 4.1, the mean is 4.1 over the 5-point Likert scale. What does it mean, 4.1? What does it mean, 4.1? 4.1, the mean is actually 4.1. What does it mean behind the value? Okay, then you have to refer back your questionnaire, you have to refer back your research question, and so on. So you have to delve into the importance of your research, the relevance of your result. You need to explain, evaluate. You need to explain your result, then you will evaluate your result. Is it the result is really, really good? Or is it the result is just so-so? And if the thing is just so-so, how do you counter it back? to be good, to be acceptable to answer your research question. And you must relate back to your literature review. That's why in preparing a PhD thesis, you prepare a proposal, you put everything in your chapter 2 as a literature review, but later on when you finish collecting your data and you start to discuss your finding, you have to revise back your chapter 2. Now you realize that some part of chapter 2 that you put during the proposal presentation is no longer relevant, because everything that you're going to discuss, you have to relate back the review and papers or discussion topic, previous research that you have been discussed in chapter 2. Okay, and you have to make an argument. Sometimes you can throw a question also in your discussion. I will show you some samples that this person show and arguments that everybody has to think, not only her as a PhD thesis. It should not be a second result section. Discussion is no longer you put back your finding, okay? Reporting everything, put back a table, put back no, okay? But in qualitative research, sometimes you just copy paste certain excerpt, isn't it? You put it just to show a sample of your conclusion. You can do that, but not all, but not put all, okay? So usually people miss out between discussion section versus findings and result section. Okay, result section is where you present your result. You did not actually interpret it, you just present it. This is a result for research question number 1, this is a result for research question number 2, this is a t-test result, okay, and so on, the manowa, angkowa, and so on. And the discussion is where you subjectively evaluate your result, whether it's actually significant, really give impact to the theory, give impact to the practices, existing practices, and so on. And the result chapter usually simplify and objectively report what you find without speculating, without give why this happened. But in discussion, you have to say why. Some students say that I'm doing a quantitative research. Prof, I'm doing a quantitative research. I can't answer why because I don't have a qualitative data. Are you agree with that? Are you agree? If you're doing a quantitative research, you run it and you run structural equation modeling or regression, then you say that in the discussion, I can't say why because my data is all quantitative. What do you think? Are you agree on that? Is it correct? No. If you do 100% quantitative, you can still answer why. How? I will share it later on, okay? Okay, how? You can, and you still can say why. A PhD without why is not a PhD. Okay, PhD must answer why. Okay, although your research is one, but you still have to discuss it why. So the discussion interpret the meanings of the result. What does the meanings of the result? Okay, even though if you formulate equation in regression, what does the equation in the regression mean of? You have to know how to interpret. Especially if you're using a statistical analysis, you have to know there is a limitation on you to interpret certain result. If you're using, if one of your research question is just to identify or analyze the correlation between two variables, you know, correlation is not causal and effect relationship. Correlation is just to see one variable is high, another variable is high. So if you do a discussion, you mention about X is increased because of Y, then you make a mistake. Because correlation is just a relationship conclusion and discussion, not a causal and effect discussion. Okay, you have to know that. Okay, so it will interpret the meaning, put them in context, and explain why they matters. Okay, so a little bit, I'm not actually focusing on result because I believe on one point that you will feel excited to discuss your finding if the way that you present your result is actually in an interesting view. For example, nowadays there are so many visualization software to present your result, not only using table. So if you're able to present your result in an interesting view, contemporary way of presenting your result in the previous chapter, chapter 4, then you will feel excited to discuss your finding in this chapter. But if your result is just table, no new ways of representing the result, then of course, when you reach up to this chapter, you feel, okay, I just discuss it. I can't look at the result from different angles and so on. That's why findings, when you present your finding in chapter 4, it's good that you can visualize your findings in different angles and different ways. For example, instead of represent it in the form of pie or bar chart, you can present it in spider web graph. Okay, then you can see the relationship among the construct that you study. Okay, this is just to give you a view that usually we have qualitative, we have quantitative, we have mixed method. However, today's sharing session, regardless of what types of your research design, this is the way that you're going to discuss your finding. I just show you this diagram because you have to know some limitation. If your analysis if your research is about qualitative, you know that you will do an iterative interpretation on your data analysis. If you do a quantitative research, then you will do more on statistical tests and modeling. And if you do a statistical test and modeling, you know some statistical test has some limitation. You have to know that and so on. Okay, so today that I would like to share is that there are 5 steps. Okay, this is just a diagram for you to read it later on. There are 5 steps for you to, let me minimize. Where's my mouse? Okay, okay. How can I minimize it? Can't minimize it. When I share it, I cannot minimize it. Okay, there is a 5 step. Let me move it. I cannot move it. Oh my God. Okay. There are 5 steps to do a discussion. First, you summarize your finding. The first box is summarize your finding. Second one, you share your interpretation. Next, you discuss the implication. And next, you acknowledge the limitation and you state your recommendation. Okay, this is how you discuss. Okay, let me just give me 1 minute. Everybody get this. Okay. Okay, so the first step, what do you do when you summarize your finding? Okay, you are not actually repeat it again, as because the previous chapter is about, okay, because the previous chapter is about, okay, because the previous chapter is about, okay, now you get which screen? Where that you get which screen? This screen, okay. Okay. Sorry, I have 2 screens. I used to have 3 screens. Okay. So when you summarize your finding, okay, what you're going to do is that you're not going to repeat what you have been stated in the previous chapter. You just summarize your finding. Okay, I will show you how to summarize. Okay. Then you interpret. Next, you discuss the implication. After that, you acknowledge the limitation. And you have to state your recommendation. Based on my experience reading a PhD thesis, examining a PhD thesis, usually most of students end up to summarize a key finding. Some actually reach up to interpretation. Some, yes. But few actually acknowledge the limitation. Few acknowledge the limitation of your research. Okay? That's why during Viva, examiner will ask you, okay, what is your limitation? Because your discussion, you never admit the limitation of your research. Okay? Because conducting research, PhD research is not you're not going to solve the real world problem. Okay, doing a PhD research is just a part of constructing a new knowledge. Okay, so in proposal or in write up chapter 1, 2, and 3, usually you has been advised to make it, you start with a broad idea, then you narrow down into your research question. That's the proposal. But now what happened in this discussion chapter, you have to bring it back to the broad of idea. Okay, that's why the beginning of discussion must be start with what is the research question that you want to answer. The middle part will be the comparison of your work with the previous work. And the last part is the conclusion of the study. So you will start with a broad idea in chapter 1, okay, till your methodology and finding. Now you will discuss back, then you will bring it back to the broad idea. That is what discussion is all about. Okay, let us go step by step, one by one, and this step, then I make it a short form as SILR, as SIR, something like that. Summary is a brief recap of your key result. Okay, interpret, what do your result mean? As I did mention, when you get the mean 4.1, what does 4.1 mean? Is it everybody agree? Okay, or only 30% of female agree? The other 70% of female disagree? And this is when you dwell into your finding. Okay, implication, what do your result matter? Why does your result is important? Okay, limitation, what can your result tell us? Your result can't tell this, due to because of might be your sample is too small. You cannot actually conducted the in-depth interview, and then you do it, might be you cannot do observation, might be because during COVID-19 pandemics, you cannot observe students learning face to face. That is why you cannot observe their learning behavior. And recommendation, the avenues for further study or analysis. So your recommendation of study for future research will come from your recommendation. Okay, so let us go step 1, from step 1 till step 5. Okay, when you summarize your key finding, you have to reiterate your research problem, but not put it exactly. Some students, they put it exactly. Research question 1. No, you just mention it briefly. Okay, this finding would like to answer this, not exact word. Some theses too mechanical. My perception is too mechanical. They put it 6.1, 5.1 as an introduction. 5.2, they start to discuss the finding. They put back the research question, exactly 100% the research question there. I don't think that's going to be the right way, but you need to mention in brief what is your research question. So you reiterate your research problem and research question and concisely summarizing your major finding. And it must be end up with a clear statement of your overall result. I will show you later on because I prepare all of you a templates to guide you to discuss your finding. Okay, some phrase as a starter, some sentence starter that you can use is just like this. The result indicate, the study demonstrate, this analysis support, the data suggests. Okay, this is what you can do as a starting point, sentence starter in your discussion where you summarize your finding. I will share you later on. There is a phrase bank for the whole chapter 1 to chapter 5 has been formulated by a researcher from Manchester University. It's called as academic phrase bank. So if you start with your write-up, then you just refer to the phrase bank to trigger you where to start. Okay. In step 2, this is where after you summarize your finding, then you start to interpret. You will interpret your result and spell out the significance. Okay, what is the significance to the readers? And how actually the result answer the research question. Okay, because you have your research question. Remember, every time you discuss your finding, you have to hold your research question. You are answering to this research question. So you summarize it according to answering the research question. You interpret it towards this research question. That's why in writing a thesis, the things that you still need to remember till the end of your study is your research question. It must be coherence from chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how you monitor your finding, okay, and discuss, okay. And some typical approach to interpret, this is an example, try to identify the correlation, the pattern, the relationship of your finding, okay, among the data. For example, you produce mean. Let's say you are identifying teacher perceptions towards online learning. Okay, you have 5 constructs. So first, of course, you will report the mean of these 5 constructs. Next, you start to relate what are the relationships among these 5 constructs as you start to dwell inside it. Okay, so find correlation. You might be discussed whether the result met your expectation or supported your hypothesis. If you have hypothesis, you have to state there. And your finding has been null, hypothesis is rejected. Fail to reject null hypothesis. If you are a mathematician, usually when you have a null hypothesis, it's either you reject null hypothesis or you fail to reject. That's the sentence, not accepted null hypothesis. Mathematicians really cannot accept you say that this research accept null hypothesis. No, we only use 2 ways of it. Reject null hypothesis, fail to reject. Fail to reject is accepted, isn't it? Fail to reject. You cannot say you accept null hypothesis. But most examiner they can say, but if your examiner is mathematician, usually exactly if you have a null hypothesis, you only reject or you fail to reject. That's all. The way that you should write in your discussion. Okay, you need to mention whether your finding is actually reject the null hypothesis or fail to reject. That's all. It fail to reject, meaning that the treatments there is no effects, significant effects, your treatment. Then I will tell you a story later on about the null hypothesis. There's a history about null hypothesis. Okay, contextualizing your finding within the previous research. Okay, you have your previous research that you review in your chapter 2, 10 research. How does your research fit among these 4 research? What makes your research different from this 10 research? Okay, what? Are you considering new factor? Are you actually completing some of the gaps that has been not done by the previous research? You have to state that. Okay, that is how you interpret. And you're explaining unexpected result. The words like excitingly, this finding, this research found out different finding from James, who have been conducted the same research in 2020. Then the readers when read, oh my God, this is a new finding. Okay, that's the words that you need to put it. Considering possible alternative explanation and making an argument for your positions, okay, as a researcher and so on. So that is where you give your interpretation. Some sentence starter. Okay, I give you a sentence starter, meaning that you should able to discuss your finding after this. Okay, those who did not reach up to this chapter yet, okay, you can get yourself ready with it. In line with the hypothesis, contrary to the hypothesis association, the result contradict the claims of Smith 2020 that the result might suggest that X, however, based on the finding of similar study, a more plausible explanation is Y. Okay, you might be expecting your finding is significant. Suddenly, it's not significant. So don't be afraid. It's a new finding, isn't it? So how do you report this? All the 10 previous research were significant. Suddenly, your research is not significant. Online learning did not give a positive, significant impact on student motivation. Okay? You have to say it. Unfortunately, the result is not significant. So why? What does the result mean? What's wrong? And so on. Okay? Step number 3, discuss the implication. You need to relate back your result to the scholarly works that you survey in the literature review. Okay, how does it the result actually implicate. And how does it fit into the existing theory? Remember your theoretical framework? Remember your algorithm? In mechanical, you have algorithm, isn't it? You don't have, you might be not having a theoretical framework, but you have an algorithm. So how does your result fit into the existing body of knowledge? New insight, new finding, and what consequences have for theory or practice? Does your finding change the way that people should think, should learn, and should motivate students and so on? So ask yourself some question like this. Do your results support or challenge existing theory? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Implication in chapter 1 is implication you're finding to the stakeholder, to the stakeholder, to the student, okay, to the ministry, to the practitioner, okay. That is the broad, because you don't have a finding yet, okay. But here is that to the theory, to the body of knowledge. This is a doctor of philosophy part, okay, different, okay? Totally different. And if they support existing theory, what's new information do they contribute? Okay, those who are doing qualitative research, isn't it? You are conducting inductive thematic analysis. Suddenly, from your study, you find new construct, and then put it there, additional point in the theories. Are there any practical implication? You have to change the way of how to teach, maybe, okay? Might be based on the situation of your research, because as I did mention, let's say the example is that online learning did not give a significant positive impact to motivation. So meaning that might be something has to be done further when implementing online learning in the context of your research. Might be when you conducted your study, you are not actually looking at the instructional design of the material, so you just use it, and so on. Might be the student is not ready to use online learning, and then this is what the practical implication, meaning that in this country that you will conduct your study, or in this kind of population, if you want to use online learning in the near future, you need to change the way certain point, because from your research finding, there is no significant positive impact. So something need to be done towards it, okay? And what is your overall aim? Your overall aim is that to show to the readers what your research has contributed and why they should care. Why they should care. Why? The examiner, when they read it, why they should care. Okay? Okay, some example sentence starter. This result builds on existing evidence of. Okay, the result do not fit with the theory. It's okay. But it open the new windows of understanding online learning. That is the words that the examiner want come up from you as a doctor of philosophy student. Okay, and if you're able to do this, most of your paper will be accepted in journal. Okay, that's why you have to be brave enough in discussion chapter. So the experiment provide a new insight into the relationship between these factors and these factors. Okay, this result should be taken into account when considering how to. Okay, the data contribute a clearer understanding of something like that. While previous research has focused on X, this research demonstrates that Y. Can you see that? That is a critical part that you have to do in this implication part. So meaning that you have one research finding, you have to summarize it, you have to interpret it, you have to mention the implication. Next, you have to acknowledge your limitation and recommend it. Okay, for first research question, move it to the second one, move it to the third one, and so on. Okay, this is what you need to do in a discussion. Okay, so step number 4, acknowledge the limitation. If there is question in WebEx, just hold for a while. After I done my slide, then I will look into your comment, okay, and I'll try to answer it. Okay, acknowledge the limitation. Every research has limitation. Okay? Some of you might be asking me back, what is the difference between this limitation and limitation in chapter 1? Okay? In limitation in chapter 1, you just mentioned, this research is just focusing on one topic. This research is focusing, not considering gender as a factor. It's okay. But here, you will interpret it. You will acknowledge the limitation. Because of you are not considering gender, that is why the result is like this, and so on. So you acknowledge the limitation, because acknowledging the limitation is demonstrate your credibility and scholarship as a scholar. Examiner, usually not all theses reach up to this level. Okay, you need to acknowledge your limitation. And limitation aren't about listing your error. It's not listing out your error. Not actually just state the mistake of your research. Never use limitation to downgrade your thesis. Never use that. But it just provide an accurate picture of what can and cannot be concluded. Okay, based on your research finding. That is what limitation is all about. And sometimes it might be due to the research design, specific methodological choices, anticipated obstacle, might be during the research process, data collection, and so on. I share you one situation. Okay, I had one master student who just graduated this January. At first, we planned to conduct focus group discussion among 10 experts. I know 10 experts in in hybrid learning. So I able to contacted all these 10 experts, all these professors, and they agreed to contribute to be members in focus group discussion. And suddenly COVID struck. Okay. Then we plan to do online focus group discussion. But unfortunately, we cannot have a same one time schedule for everybody to be in the WebEx. And what happened is that from focus group discussion, we changed it to in-depth interview. We managed to have one session where only with 2 experts. Next week session only with the other 3 experts. Another following week, we have a session with the other 3 experts. We cannot have one session with all the 10 experts because they are quite busy person and so on because of COVID and so on. Okay, so we change our methods from focus group discussion to in-depth interview, a series of in-depth interview. Might be we are formulating a framework, so our frameworks has been formulated, but we put a limitation saying that might be our framework is not really we're not saying it's not strong, it's strong. We say that our framework needs to be might be tested in the near future with all the experts at the same time and so on. But this because of during the data collection, we can't manage to have all these experts sit together to comment the framework at the same time. So this is where, how do you put it in your discussion? And when you put it that your limitation, the examiner say that, oh, you are smart, you should be awarded with Doctor of Philosophy. Okay, how do you manage? You are not manipulating it, you manage the obstacle, okay? But you still control the quality of your thesis. Here are few common possibility for the limitation. Yeah.
Maybe the limitation can be the location, your geographical location.
Yeah. As I did mention, I have 10 previous research the findings are significant on online learning towards motivation, but suddenly my finding is not significant. When I look it back, all these 10 research is not in Nigeria. Yes. 2 in US, 3 in Japan. And then you know what happened? The examiner will ask it again. Can you find similar research in Nigeria to add your literature review? And you say that, no, I don't have it. That's okay. But then if you have it, then you have to add. Because you must have a similar research that been done in the country. Okay? Sample size was small, encounter problem, variable that you were unable to control. You cannot control the variable. How come you control it? Especially those who are doing experimental research design. You cannot control it. The one that you control is a human being. How can you control it? You did not know what these students doing after data collection process and so on. You after noting the limitation, you can reiterate why the results are nonetheless valid. Although you mention the limitation, but later on you have to mention it back. However, the finding is still valid. But you cannot explain, you cannot generalize it for something like that. I will show you the real discussion that my student did in her PhD research. Very interesting part. Okay. Example of limitation sentence starters. Okay. The generalizability of the result is limited by. Okay. The reliability of this data is imparted by. Due to the lack of data on X, the result cannot confirm. This is where the future research need to be taken. Then you get your point for the future study. Yes. Oh, sorry. sorry. Okay. Decline. Okay. You know what? I actually cannot. Wait. Okay, wait. Okay. I will share it back. Okay, sorry. Because is it screen two? Wait. You get this screen, Zoom? Zoom? Which screen that you get? Now? Is it a slideshow? Slideshow, okay. Okay. So, the methodological choices were constrained by, okay, you have to admit, okay, it's beyond the scope of the study. Okay, but don't always say it's beyond the scope, it's beyond the scope. The examiner will say, oh, okay, why is beyond? Okay, just sometimes you can use that sentence, okay? Last step is share your recommendation. But suddenly you cannot see this one pula kan? Sekejap wait. Yeah. Wait. There's a question in the chat. Let me take the question in the chat. Sekejap. Okay, just wait for a while. What is the question in the chat? Let me look into it. Okay. Where is it? Ju. Oh, is it necessary? To mention the name of the company if a limitation is related to it. No, don't mention the company name. Don't mention the company name. Use other words lah, not the company name. Okay, for example, publishing an e-books on Amazon Kindle has limitations such as not being able. No, don't mention the company name. Renee, don't mention the company name. Okay, someone raise up hand. Abdul Rahman, you raise out the hand. You want to ask question? Oh, your voice is echoing. My voice is echoing. Is it true that my voice is echoing? Anyone in WebEx? I understand, doctor. Thank you. Okay, it's okay. Okay, then Summer Geyser, you have to check your internet line because others says that it's okay. 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 No question. Okay. Okay. Let me continue. Okay. Now I will need to check with Dr. Ju. What is it, Ju? You get my slide share, isn't it? Okay. Slide share view. Slide show view. So, okay. But then I need to click. Okay. Okay, Ju. Okay. So last, you need to share your recommendation. Okay. You have to make your recommendation. Practicals implementation. Your algorithms that you produce from your mechanical research can be used in what? Is it in air conditioning technology? Change the way of car, aircon system and so on. Okay. Sometimes the recommendation are safe. Sometimes you save it for conclusion. Sometimes, but then you can put it here. It will suggest a further research. Your limitation later on, okay, they mention the limitation. You suggest the further research. Okay, you don't just state that more study should be done. If you want to use it once a while, it's okay, but not just put it. Always use that word. And give a concrete ideas for how future work can build towards it. So some of the sentence starter. Okay, further research is needed to establish. Future study should take into account, something like that. Avenue for future research include, something like that. Okay, let's just look the real sample. Okay, this is my PhD thesis students who use these 5 steps in discussing the finding. Okay, can you see that? First, this is for first research question. The green one is actually show, okay, about summarize. So in this study, understanding the effects of reflection coupled with feedbacks towards student performance has implication with regards to how the instructor addressed student learning. So she tried to summarize it. Next, in the gray highlighted text, she tried to interpret. These imply that the students were attentive and able to comprehend learning based on the applied teaching and learning approach. Till down there. And she started to interpret it. Next, she implicated from the perspective of theory. From the social constructivist perspective, the impact of student and student-instructor interaction when giving reflection and feedback provide opportunity for students to emulate the same action. So this is where she started to do implication on her study. Next, limitation. Lastly, the researcher cannot be certain whether demographic factors such as gender, race, and age may affect the score measure as often revealed in previous work. Okay? She starts to state the limitation because she's not considering gender. However, okay, she tried to counter it back. She said here, okay, here she mentioned it back. Lack of information or observation means that this is not possible to predict. Although she has a limitation, but she still, the finding still has what I call a strong point and can predict on certain thing. Okay, and it put it here. Nevertheless, from general observation of the student data pattern, it can be seen that this is not necessary. The case that the student with higher pretense is not necessary looking at gender. You see that? Yeah, this is how you do it. It mentioned here, it cannot explain based on demographic factors as a gender, but nevertheless, from general observation of the student data pattern, it can be seen that this is not necessarily the case. So it counter it back. Okay. And last recommendation for better learning benefit, perhaps the instructor could adapt to a more efficient methods of evaluation that can give instant feedback to the students and thus support them to be more focused on the lecture topic before can fully comprehend the relation between reflection and academic performance, which is actually not been tackled in her research. Okay, so this one example. Another example, okay, this one. This study sought to predict. So she mentioned briefly the research problem and questions that she would like to answer. Predict student learning performance measure as grade increment based on data pattern of reflection. Okay, and she summarized the finding. Next, she interpreted based on the description of accept in section 6.3. Okay, because this is a second research question. When she interpreted, she tried to compare finding from research question number 2 supporting by research, finding from research question number 1. You have to remember, maybe you have 4 research questions. You have finding for research question number 1, finding for research question number 2, finding for research question number 3, and number 4. When you discuss it, you start with research finding number 1, you discuss, and when you move to interpret, you can, when you discuss your research finding, research question number 2, finding of research question number 2, you need to interpret it, try to relate it with the finding of research question number 1. Yes. Why? Okay. It must be integrated among the research question. Okay? Don't just report it, research question number 1, 2, 3, 4. That's all. You need to look into it. That's why actually when she referred to accept in section 6.3, that is the previous research question. Okay, so she interpreted it here. Next, she put the implication. She put the implication. She tried to dwell it details in terms of individualistic orientation and so on. Next, she put the limitation. In summary, from a quantitative viewpoint, and the authoring system relatively increased to the lack of information observation mean that she tried to put limitation and she recommended. Okay? For a learning pathway to be practical, it can be programmed and embedded in the blogging environment. She identified the pathway, but she never embedded it in a blogging environment. So she suggested it should, future researchers should use the pathway that she formulated from her PhD to put embedded in the blog learning environments. Okay, where to put it, where to fit your finding. So this is what it is. Okay, let us move. Below is some of the other sentence structure. Below is a list of questions. Below is a list of questions to guide you organizing the structure of your discussion. Sometimes you can refer to this question. What experiment did you conduct? What do your research mean? What were the important results? How did the result answer? If you don't want to use you don't want to follow the 5 steps, you can also use this as a guideline. Okay. What not to include in your discussion, you don't introduce new result. Suddenly you have a different result. Not mentioned in the previous chapter. Where do you get the result? Examiner will ask it, where is the result in your finding chapter? It might be you have it. If you have it, you should revise your finding chapter. Okay? No new result. Don't make inflated claim. Avoid over interpretation. Okay, for example, this is what I call it false citation. False citation. False citation can be catched under plagiarism. What do I mean by false citation? Previous research is mentioned about the use, maybe the use of maybe something like the use of video in e-learning. Okay, and suddenly your research is about the use of video in face-to-face learning. You use that citation to support your finding. That is false citation. Okay, nowadays,
it's still false.
what is the related your research face-to-face with that one online learning? Unless you are comparing it. You say this research is significant and the same finding like what have been done by Smith. You know what, examiner will look into your reference. Smith, oh, Smith is doing video in online learning. It's not face-to-face. How come? Okay, unless you are explaining something like this finding, okay, complement, describe more on previous research that have been done by Smith, who are not looking on the use of video face-to-face. That's okay. But most students, you know what, I found based on my experience reading PhD thesis, till now, I found 5 theses who did false citation. When I refer back to the articles did not mention about multimedia. Even a single words, no multimedia words there. But suddenly in the discussion, these students cited, say that this is a similar finding with the previous research. And then when I read the article, search the word multimedia, no words of multimedia in that. That is false citation. Okay, and it triggered us that, oh, maybe she's not the one who discussed the finding. She hired someone else to discuss the finding. That one, false citation. Please, over-interpretation, speculation that isn't directly supported by your data. Remember, write something that only beyond your data. Don't undermine your research. Don't undermine your research. Even though you discuss the limitation, the limitation will strengthen your credibility, but it's not going, don't emphasize on the weaknesses of your thesis. Every single thesis has a strength of it, has a uniqueness of it. So even though you have limitation, but never undermine your research. Okay? Never undermine your research. Okay. So frequent mistake, the discussion is too static. What do I mean? Discussion is too statics and mechanical. Throughout the 4 research question, the way that this PhD student discuss research question 1, 2, 3, and 4, same method, same sentence structure, same sentence starter. Okay, is too static and mechanical. Avoid that. Okay, discussion must have feeling, emotion into it. Discussion of finding that weren't included in the result chapter. You don't have the finding. Then you suddenly, you say, you claim it. Poor linkage to the research aim, objective, and research question. Poor linkage to the existing research, theories, theoretical framework, and only answering what, not answering why. Okay. If your research is quantitative, how to answer why? If your research is quantitative, you don't have a qualitative data. How do you answer why? You can refer to the previous research. And you need to use word might be, not, you are not confirm on it. It's not, you are not sure about it. You say might be the findings end up this way, like what had been mentioned in the previous research. That research also are doing quantitative, quali, and so on. Then you claim it, but you need to cite it. That is how you answer why. Okay. Finding are contradicting. When the finding are contradicting with the literature, the discussion underrate the finding. When your research, 10 research is significant, the use of online learning to increase motivation, enhance motivation, your research is not significant. Then you worried a lot, then you underrate your finding. Okay? If you're having this kind of situation, all previous research is significant, your research is significant, then you need to answer why. Look back your sample, look back your method, look back your instrument, look back everything. Why is not significant? Previous research is significant. Okay? Two for fact discussion or finding. Two for fact. No limitation. Wow, voila, no, this two for fact. Two for fact discussion. Nothing wrong with your research. It's the best research ever. Okay? Usually those who are actually doing quantitative. You conducted the structural equation modeling. You are too confident with that structural equation modeling. Then you say that your research is perfect. Okay? False citation. I mentioned that. Irrelevant previous research finding to support yours. Okay, you are doing related to video, face to face. Suddenly you take the one who do research related to e-learning. When the examiner search the article, there's no video words in that article. Okay, you can't do that. Incorrect interpretation. You interpret it incorrectly, the finding. Okay, like for example, correlation is not causal and effect relationship. You interpret it as causal and effect.
Correlation is not showing the impact.
No, it should just show the relationship. That's all.
Relation between two variables.
Yes. And the strength of relationship, the coefficient correlation showing the strength of relationship. One variable is increased, another variable is increased. That is correlation. Okay. Okay. Don't the bully pulpit. Bully pulpit is something like you criticize previous research. You cited the previous research to support your research. Suddenly, you criticize that research is rubbish. That research should not be conducted. That is bully pulpit. Okay, might be the previous research is true at the situation where the researcher conducted his or her research. Don't ever condemn other research, and because of you will like to show your research is excellent, and that what is called bully pulpit. Avoid that. Okay.
Is that an example of this bully?
When you're too confident on your findings, then you suddenly say that, oh, the models that have been produced by Wang in 2019 is irrelevant anymore. Oh. How sure are you? How sure are you? That is bully for kids. What you can do is that saying that the research by Wang in 2019 has not been exploring the perspective of after COVID-19. So the finding of this research really complements, enhancing the perspective by Wang in 2019. You don't ever mention that it's not relevant anymore. Don't mention that future research should focus on my finding, not following on others' framework. Oh, no, don't do that. Okay, don't do that. Okay, point that you need to avoid, tangential issue, tangential issue. Okay, new literature. Okay, overemphasize on result, unwarranted speculation. That's one you need to avoid.
So
do that.
New literature, I should avoid new literature.
New literature that new from the chapter 2. That's why if you put new literature, chapter 2 also need to put. Okay, that is what. New literature meaning that there is a researcher that the reader only found this her or his name in chapter 5, not in chapter 2. So you need to edit your chapter 2 lah. That's why you need to add. That is what the meaning of new literature. New literature must be mentioned in chapter 2. If you found new literature, you need to cite it in your discussion. Make sure that you also mention the same researcher in chapter 2 or in chapter 1. Okay? Okay, and some tools. Okay, there is a phrase bank. What do I mean by phrase bank? I will show you. Phrase bank by Manchester is really nice phrase bank. Let me stop slide, show my screen. Okay, I put it inside the Google Drive. You can look into it. What does it mean, phrase bank? Okay, let me open it in the Google Drive. Yes, this one. This academic phrase bank, okay, is very interesting because it guides you when you start in your writing, right up, okay? Right, to scroll. I believe this one. So this phrase bank, it prepare us sentence starters for every section of our thesis. For example, okay, if you have start in part of this one, to establish the importance of your research, so you can use this sentence structure. Okay, this is actually when you start to argue in literature review, you can use this sentence structure. So it provides you, okay, a guideline to start your sentence by Manchester University. Okay, and discussion also, you have it down here. It has a online version also. I download the PDF. If you go to this website,
I think it's going to be shared.
yeah, if you go to this website, then you can just easily pull. There's a pull down menu for you to select, okay, the phrase bank according to chapter. Okay, so this is where, sorry, this is describing methods. Okay, today's various method as a sentence starter and for you to start your write up. Okay, let me scroll down. Reporting result. Okay, for example, here you have table 1. Table 1 show, table 1 compare, table 1 present, table 1 provide. So be creative. Might be you have 40 tables in your finding, isn't it? So sometimes you use it show, sometimes you use it compare, sometimes you use it present, provide. Okay, don't use the same word throughout the thesis. Table 1 show, table 2 show, table 3 show, table 4 show, table 5 show. Oh my God, and the examiner will feel, oh my God, be creative, huh? Be creative. Okay, so this is how you highlight the significant. It is apparent from this table that very few sample agree on the statement. Okay, the table is quite revealing in several ways. This phrase bank, academic phrase bank, known as academic phrase bank, are discussion finding. Okay, statement of result. I just give you few sentence starter, but this Reference give you so many sentence starter. So after this, if you still did not finish your thesis, I'm so worried. Why? Yeah, there are so many sentences you can use. Okay? It's interesting to note that in all 3 cases of this study, just revise it accordingly. Okay, I give you this. Another one is this one. Another discussion phrase guide by APA. APA give you. The APA style give. This one. To discuss our finding highlight. The results strongly imply. This is interesting. What interesting to when the examiner read it, we will open our eye. What is that so interesting? Okay. In my view, the idea is supported. This is all the phrase bank that you can use. Okay. Another thing that I prepared to all of you is that a template. Okay. This is a discussion, recommendation, and conclusion designed by Zaidatun. Okay. Just for all of you. Introduction. I put it chapter 5 because most of your thesis chapter 5 is discussion. But then those who actually might be your chapter 6 is discussion, you still can use it.
But chapter 5 should be discussion presentation.
Yeah.
So what of if I want to talk on my theory? I'm now going to introduce a theory.
What do you introduce a theory in your discussion?
The theory that I've read in chapter 1 that I'm going to apply. So I need to discuss the conceptual framework and the theoretical framework.
Why do you need to discuss your conceptual framework in chapter 5? I never saw a thesis that discuss the conceptual framework, theoretical framework in chapter 5. Oh. Nobody discuss it there. They only discuss in chapter 2, in chapter 1. They will counter it back. They will counter it back in chapter discussion just to see where your research can fit into the existing theoretical framework. That's all. Okay. This is how you do it. Okay, I put it here. Okay, 5.1 is introduction. Okay, 5.2 is your point for research question number 1. Don't put your exact research question number 1 as 5.2. What is the main point in your research question number 1? Let's say you would like to. Let's say your research question is that what are the perception of students towards online learning? Then you put it there. Perception of student on online learning. That's the point. Then you reinstate your research question here. Reinstate, not write your research question. Reinstate the point only. What is the overall result? Then you interpret. Then what do your result matter? You go to paragraph 2. You detail. You dwell into your research. The result of your research question number 1. You detail it out. Okay. You interpret it. You try to contextualize it. You try to put implication. Okay. Same goes to paragraph 3, might be there's a detail later on. For example, let's say you would like to, your research question is, what are the perception of students towards online learning? Online learning have 5 constructs. Okay, so here, paragraph 1, overall construct. When you go to paragraph 2, the first construct discuss, or might be not the first construct, the highest construct, and the highest construct that receive highest perception by student, you discuss it and why. Go to paragraph 3, go to paragraph 4 if you have more, and then you can add more. This is the last, I put it here, detailed result of 1N. 1N is the sub of your research question 1. If you have 5 construct, then you go up to 5 times. And at last, you have your last paragraph where you have the overall result back. You interpret, you put implication, you check, you mention about limitation, and you recommend. Put close. 3 pages, 4 pages for your research question number 1. Continue it for research question number 2. Okay? Reinstate it. Interpret. Okay? Same. Go along the way. Okay? I just give a template. Why do I prepare this template? So that you know where to discuss. This is 1 paragraph. 1 paragraph, 1 paragraph. Okay? And last. And same as above, if you have 3 research questions, you continue. You continue on it. Okay. Next is research conclusion. Okay, what does research conclusion should have in research conclusion? This is my next slide. Okay, because we have discussion and conclusion. In discussion is only, okay, discussion section versus conclusion is totally different. Discussion, you have your in-depth exploration. Conclusion is shorter, more general, concisely answer your main research question. What is the thing? What is the finding? And recommendation. Okay. But discussion, you dwell into it. You give meaning, you interpret, you state the implication, you mention the limitation, and you recommend it in general. Okay. So this is the difference. Okay. And some diagram for you to look into the difference. Sorry. The difference between wait. Why does the screen is there? Okay, wait. So the difference between the difference between discussion and conclusion. Okay, so conclusion actually, okay, you will restate by hypothesis, you restate by, you highlight the limitation, you mention the result, okay, that is conclusion, okay. But some part, do something more thought-provoking, okay. What new question are raised by your investigation, that's conclusion. What are the issue? And the last one, the climax of your thesis, the frameworks that formulated from this research, what, and so on. So this is where you put it as a conclusion. A conclusion need to mention all this, and I did mention on the diagram, isn't it? Your introduction, you focus back to your thesis statement, and when you do a conclusion, then what you call it, discussion, you open it back to the body of knowledge. Okay. Last but not least, okay, the template also has a conclusion. Last but not least, okay, in conclusion, don't summarize too much. Usually conclusion is about 1.5 page, but don't summarize it too much. Don't make it just one paragraph. Okay, don't just make it one paragraph. You need to explain more. Be careful. 1.5 page conclusion. Okay. Yeah, 2 pages. This is example of conclusion. First, what is? First is about the research objective. Second, you mention it. What is your conclusion? First, second, and follow your research question. Last, can you see that here, the last? These learning performance pathways further highlight the potential advantage of recommender system for future adoption, which can assist in developing a more systematic reflective thinking process through a personalized approach by identifying the possible at-risk student based on the frequency value gain, because she's producing the framework. Okay, so if you are actually formulating a new algorithm, where to use your algorithm? Okay, not only in the area of mechanical engineering, in other areas also. Okay. So let's, for example, those who doing research in Islamic study, you are formulating a halal framework, checking food in terms of halal food. But you know that halal can be used also in cosmetic, isn't it? In healthcare. So this is where you suggest it, not only to detect the food in terms of halal or not, but on the cosmetic, on the healthcare products and so on medicine and so on, even the cat food. And some now people are what you call it, promoting halal cat food, and so on. Okay, so this is part. Okay, last but not least, some tips when you do a discussion. You must be happy. If you feel exhausted, you're not happy with your finding, take a rest, have a sleep, but not more than 1 day. Okay, you need to do your discussion exactly after you've done your data analysis. Okay, be happy. You have to hold your research question. When you do your discussion, remember your research question. You have a guideline there, your research question. What are the questions that you want to answer? Okay. Second, okay, how do you fit? How does your research fit into the existing scenario? Okay, remember, you struggle a lot to find your research focus. And from the day one of you doing PhD, everything that you read you will feel confused which area that you should focus. I would like to bring my research to this way. Oh my God, there's other research say that should be that way, isn't it? So how to fit? What is your research is all about? Okay. Next, what is not started will never get finished. When you have your data, immediately you need to discuss your finding. Even though it's not a complete sentence, do it. Don't just put your data, oh, I don't have any idea today. Then suddenly you say, oh, 3 months. No, still have no ideas to discuss. Because when you discuss it, exactly when you discuss your finding, exactly you're done with data collection and data analysis, you still remember. When you collect the data, when it involves human being, you still remember the students smile in learning, they are happy, then you can actually, what you call it, do a better discussion. Okay? Finish is better than perfect. Remember, PhD is never ending story. Okay? For example, my students are already buying the thesis, and suddenly when I check it, oh, there is a spelling error. Still have a spelling error. I never noticed it. She never noticed it. Including my thesis also. And when I look it back, I do a mistake. Oh my God, I do a mistake on table. How come I never notice it? So it's a never-ending story. So finish is better than perfect. Finish is better than perfect. Okay. Dream of it, having Siva Rajini, can you mute your mic? You need to inspire. You need to have a dream. You need to have courage to recommend something and harmonize. Harmonize your research into the context of the world. Okay? Inspire. Your write-up inspired people. That's a discussion. And thesis is about true happiness ended since it started. So your discussion must be happy. You must be excited. Siva Rajini, can you mute your mic? Siva. Okay. So you must be excited. Okay. Make your supervisor excited to read your discussion. Okay. So that is all, I think. Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Any question? Can.
The attendance and the slides should be.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, they need it again. Okay. The attendant link is actually. Siva Rajini, can you mute your mic? Okay. Can I mute? Okay. Okay, those who need attendance, okay, first, those in online, I think Dr. Ju did share the link of the attendant again, okay. For those who actually here, who attend the session face-to-face, here again, the attendant, okay, let me, okay, here again, the attendant. Okay. No, she's here. Here again, the attendant is here. Okay, for those who attend face to face, the attendant is actually view on the slide, the screen. Those who attend online, the attendant form is actually in the chat that been shared by Dr. Ju. Okay, done. Okay, those who would like to get the notes for today and all the sharing materials, you can scan this QR code. And for those in Webex, just wait for a while. Okay, people, okay. You can access the materials to the link that I share in the chat. Okay, so now I open for questions. If you have any question, anyone would like to ask on the discussion? Okay, don't let your supervisor do a discussion of your finding. If you do your discussion very well during Viva, well, nobody can beat you. Nobody can beat you. You know everything. And you can explain it. You can answer everything. Okay? Because discussion is about you are answering others without being asking why and so on. Okay, any questions from the WebEx? Where can I get the template? Okay, just go to the link that I shared in the chat. Anusha, sorry, Lim Wan Kun. I share Lim. I already shared the link of the materials today and template and the academic phrase bank through the link in the chat. Okay, I hope you get it. For those who actually attending face to face, you can get it from the QR code. This one, or the link here. Okay, so any questions from all of you? From WebEx and also from those who attend face to face? Oh, you want the link back? Anyone? Okay, yeah.
Professor, you said that in the discussion we need to do a summary, but how is that summary different from the conclusion?
The summary, the conclusion is something like you will put your summary based on your research question. But in the, what I call it, in the discussion, you not only do a summary, the last chapter, the last part here, okay, can you see that here? Where is it? Okay. Let me open it here. Okay, here, when you do a summary here, you interpret it. You make an implication, you make a limitation, you make a recommendation. But in conclusion, you just put it the main point. What is the finding? What is the finding based on the research question? First, what is the conclusion? Second, the first conclusion is related to your first research question. The second conclusion is related to your second research question. Okay. This is where, for example, in the slide, this one, I share it. Can you say first? What? And there is more. Okay. Fifth, finally is the end product. That is conclusion. And the climax of your research. Okay. Session material. Yeah, that one. Okay. So, any more? That's all? Okay. Good luck and all the best for you to do your discussion. Okay. I pray for your success. Okay. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum. And the video, I will share the video later on to all of you.